Kai for putting this webinar together. Kai specialize in advanced technology, very high-end products here in the US. He has been a pioneer in working with companies that offer very sophisticated solution to the market. So we're delighted to have you, Kai, here with us.
Thank you.
Also a supporter of the EPARTRADE platform. He came on recently and we're very appreciative, and we're doing, this is an industry about small businesses, and that's another example of us putting a lot of effort helping all the small businesses out there to really take advantage of this wonderful industry we're all part of. So it is 10 o'clock here in California. Joe, on to you.
Thank you very much, Francis. John, you guys are doing such a great job. Thank you very much. And to everybody out there around the world watching on EPARTRADE.com and Racer.com, welcome to you. This has been so amazing. We all missing out on our trade show season, but to be able to do it right here online, connect and learn as much as we have. Roger Penske, the first day chip today. It's just been fantastic. Welcome to Thomas and Kai. Kai, Peter, love the name, love what you guys do. This is a subject because we've discussed the evolution of parts, but
correct,
materials are what make it possible. And being on the cutting edge of that, you both have had tremendous experience from youth involved in racing, a couple of lifers. So starting out with Tom, why don't you give us your background initially, because this is such a specialized field that you're in and dominating. We want to know where you got the initial passion.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having us. Thanks for the opportunity to present ourselves, our company, Smith High Performance. And it's absolutely a great platform you're providing to the entire community. I was following the last couple of days, the show, and what I could see is this global community in racing, and everyone talks about racing applications, whether it's seat belts or brakes we had before, from Bremer, with such a passion. And it is fantastic to see that this global community really has such a big drive, for such a big passion for the sport. It's great to see. So coming back to passion, I think it's my bio. I started watching Formula One races from the age of 4 years. So some might say I'm a bit crazy, but yes, I am. I'm a petrol head. And but during my time at Alcoa, so one of the biggest aluminum producers, of course, Alcoa stands for Aluminum Company of America. I came across the fact that some of these really smart guys working Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, whether it's for chassis or engine applications, they're not aware of the latest materials which are being used on aircrafts, but also on the military applications. And they still know, and they're using their materials which are predominantly they've learned from university, whether it's 775, 2618, 2014, or the other alloys or titanium alloys. So I could identify, or we could identify, that there's a lack of know-how, and our ambition is more or less to make these materials available and also to train people on these new niche materials.
Very interesting. And Kai, give us kind of a similar look into your background. I know you've been doing it for over 20 years, and industries in Germany and the United States, materials. You don't look like you've done anything for 20 years, Kai.
Yeah, I think so too. No, jokes aside, thanks again also from my side to having us here on this great event. It's really bringing everybody together. And yeah, from my background, I've been wrenching since I was 15 years old on mainly Harley-Davidson custom bikes back then in Germany, and that's where I started my career and my passion around the motorcycle and automotive industry. And when I in the end ended up here in the US, I was involved in quite some high-level racing activities with World Superbike Racing, with Eric Buell Racing back then, and was involved in a lot of engine development there. And this really opened my eyes to what is out there, what can be done. And that was with a lot of help with actually a really sophisticated supply base, a global supply base. A lot of companies from Europe and Asia as well, actually, and the US, obviously. And this really kickstarted the thought in me to start this manufacturers rep business, where I represent international companies that are not big enough to be present here in the US. So I'm basically their spokesperson and their extended sales arm here in the US. And this goes hand in hand now with Smith's High Performance. So I represent a lot of high performance manufacturers for components, but they really need the materials that Smiths has on hand, and that it was the perfect synergy of bringing this technology and this race level to a global presence, basically here in the US.
Tremendous. And where would we be? And I guess that brings us to the first question. Advanced materials, the need is driven by performance. We always are finding the weak link in the chain, whatever that is, and then you strengthen that link, and then there's a new weak link. So talk a little bit about that process, Tom and Kai. Jump in as Motorsports, and this competition that is constantly happening is forcing people within it to advance their program. And that's when they ultimately come to you guys, folks at Smiths and otherwise, to find the next most strongest thing. So kind of take us through how that all works.
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier, being involved in the automotive and motorcycle and even marine industry, the manufacturers and the race teams, they all want basically the best material that they can have. A lot of materials get their first exposure in really high level, high professional racing, but and so these materials are very exotic for most people and not really accessible. And what I've seen in the engine development world, as well as driveline development world for CV joints, let's say brakes, suspension, connecting rods, crankshafts, valve train, everybody looks for that cutting edge material that gets them to the next level. And keywords like 300M or what is above that? What can we go where can we go further with titanium or special alloys? That's where we basically try to come into play and provide that to a broader audience. And this is where really the synergy comes into play with Smith's High Performance, with me as a sales arm for them here, and bringing that and exposing this to the US customer base, and amateur as well as professional racing.
Tom, if you could expand on that from your perspective, because you've already got my interest peak thinking about, you know, around the world, everybody talks about unobtainium, right? Like the one material that's going to change everything and make things quicker, faster, and last longer. That's the business you're in. So this is very exciting.
It's very exciting, and we really enjoy this this field, and this I call it always a playground. I mean, some consider raw materials a bit of an unsexy product. I mean, an engine, convert, piston, aerodynamic parts, completely different story, and a round bar or plate is maybe not as sexy, but we think there's a lot of potential, or we see there's a lot of potential in that. Not just the typical design drivers, which are density, elevated temperature performance, stiffness, creep resistance, corrosion resistance, but also the lifing of products. And we provide tailor-made solutions for pistons, for chassis parts, engine blocks. So with slightly different chemistries, so shrink chemistries, in order to have a better fatigue performance, for instance. Yeah. And in terms of the product range, everything from really low density like the magnesium, aluminum alloys, over to heavy metals. A lot of steel materials, Inconel. This is our portfolio, and we're really one of the boutique shops in this aspect.
Okay, and Tom, like the current applications that you're seeing the highest use, as in intensity and like where is the cutting edge?
Well, it's quite difficult to outline a core product because we're involved in so many different areas. But I would say engine components predominantly. However, we do a lot of work on suspension components, shock absorbers, uprights, central wheel nuts, even wheels, but predominantly I would say the entire engine structure and also the internals.
Very interesting. The torture chamber that is making the power that we drive to the ground. And let's expand on that in that, being here based in the States, it's easy to think that things come from here, but the entire planet is working on different applications. You mentioned military applications, et cetera. What is usually the primary space, is aeronautics, et cetera? What is the starting point for the creation of these materials that end up in motorsport? Is it typically the military or aerospace, or are some designed specifically for motorsport?
Well, some of the designs are specifically for motorsport, but we have a bit of a different approach. So we take materials which have been predominantly developed for the aircraft industry, because obviously the biggest volumes drive this development for these alloys. And but hardly anyone knows about these materials. They are developed by the big plants, by the big mills, and go directly into the Boeings, the Airbus, et cetera, et cetera. But the motorsport industry does not know about these materials, and this was the approach. Rob Kitchen founded Smith High Performance, that this job is communicated, that people can use these materials, and these materials are available. This is the most important point. And we take our laboratory, we use our laboratory to make fatigue performance tests of elevated temperature tests, and then we approach the subcontractor industry or the OEMs. Look, we have 2 or 3 new candidates for pistons, for example, back-to-back tests against a baseline alloy 2618, and usually they take it off and use it in the engine.
Very interesting. Cost-wise, always a factor. I'm thinking about the way this development has occurred, and there's always startup and additional R&D, and then once that you want to maximize your profit after you've created this, and that's why motorsport is great, because they only make so many planes, and there's race cars all the time, and our guys, they're pushing their stuff to the edge, but they also consider cost. So cost-wise, for some of the companies out there, like how much more of a challenge is it to bring something in that we, frankly, like you just said, haven't heard of?
Well, that's absolutely true. So Paradise City is more or less over. In every race category, we still do see cost caps coming in, more emphasis on cost sensitiveness. On the other hand, we do see a lot of applications, for instance, engines, gearboxes, but also other parts to have longer life. So in Formula One, we have only a couple of engines per the race season. So the value of the material in use, but also the part gets a longer lifetime, which puts more emphasis on the fatigue performance and the individual material. Yeah, and this pays off. But you're right. Some of the niche materials are more expensive than conventional materials, but with standard or industrial quality, you do see a different performance level, but also fatigue life level.
How do you want to build on that?
Sure. Yeah. As Thomas said, in general, yes, most of the materials that are advanced materials, that's the topic of the webinar, are not as common, obviously, as other materials. So they are sometimes even still in the development stage. So that elevates the cost initially. What we try to explain and justify, basically, especially in professional racing, is that it's not about heavy investing. It's more about smart investing into the right material that gets you through the finish line. And when you consider the overall cost of a race team per weekend, and you save on a marginal material cost of a critical component that might not survive a whole race weekend with a sealed engine, your overall costs are much higher. So it's really about thinking about where to apply your budget and do it thoroughly with proper design decisions, and that's where we support design engineering with material suggestions for various applications as well.
I think that's been the topic that we've all been on now for several years. We understand, but it's kind of challenging sometimes. I'm sure this is what you guys fight. You mentioned Formula One with just a couple of engines, so the cost per engine is going to go way up, but you're using way less, and so at the end of the year you've spent less. But it's hard to make people understand that. I'm sure that's what you guys fight all the time: initial investment versus long-term expense. And it seems basic, though, right? Like we're taught right from the beginning, like, you don't have to do things twice.
Yes, but there are a lot of I would say communities where there's a certain knowledge base based on certain materials, and it always takes a little extra motivation or extra emphasis to make this next step, and that's obviously the art and challenge to educate, and that's why webinars like this are very important as well for us to get the exposure and to educate everybody, not just professional race teams, but as you know, the aftermarket scene and the amateur racing scene is huge in the US. So making them aware that this is available, and instead of going through X number of parts, let's try to help you make it right and go through less parts.
That makes sense. And the competition is not just on the racetrack. The competition is in the free market. And if a slightly smaller company wants to leapfrog their competition in terms of performance, this is one of the ways they can with better core materials. Thomas, question for you. People are interested, like where we're talking worldwide is our audience right now. Where are some of these materials coming from that you guys are using at Smith's High Performance?
Well, from all different areas globally, but predominantly, one of the leading companies are sitting in the US, and so we're sourcing a lot of materials from the US or their foreign broad subsidiaries. Then they're booked into our warehouse system, and we follow a really strict and traceability system. So it's a barcode system. So certain products are linked to certain articles, whether it's an upright or a piston or conrod, and we define more or less with a customer the specification. We have a traceability code even for the cutting device, which just cuts this very product, and also in certain areas at the location where the cut has come from. So this is absolutely mandatory for our high-level customers, that we're able to trace back any batch, but also the cutting history within our company.
That's important, just to keep track of quality control. And I think that's a good thing to expand upon. Kai, feel free to jump in. Tom, jump in that. We've kind of identified some potential fields and manufacturers that could be interested in trying to raise their raw material game. So how does it work? Like, how do they reach out, and time frame? What is time frame for, like, someone sees this and they say, hey, listen, I'm making shocks. I'd love to investigate some sort of new, stronger, better material to make my product better. What is the scope of the time frame for how long it takes, and how long will it take before they can get their new material?
Yeah, I think timing is always of the essence, especially in racing and in product development. If you're developing a new product, you want to be able to sell it in the next season. So right now, since it is a US-owned company, but warehousing is currently, for example, in the UK. But from a timing perspective, we're with Smith's High Performance, I was personally very impressed by the actual operating performance of the company. If we get a quote, for example, one day, next morning I have, or an RFQ, I'm sorry, I have a quote from the team in the UK next morning, usually, if we have something in stock. And if we do have the material in stock, we can ship basically within 24 hours, meaning the customer can have worldwide on a global basis their material within 3 to 5 days. So, and that's really the core aspect where we set ourselves apart from another either standard material stockholder, where we have exclusive materials or very exotic materials that can be available very quickly. And that is huge for us. And I think that's a big selling point to the customers. The customer base also here in the US, especially high performance, high level racing companies, are demanding on a monthly basis, when do you have warehousing here in the US? And the initiative is clearly there. We are, as I said, I started with Smiths as an extended sales arm here in April this year. So we are ramping up this demand, and once the business case justifies it, we definitely have that in our in our pipeline of the concept to bring the same concept that we have in the UK here into the US.
Yeah. Logistics is very important. Tom, you want to build on that?
Yeah, just a quick comment from my side. I mean, they're brilliant material suppliers out there, but our business concept is really tailor-made for the prototype industry. So we speak the motorsport language, and we know about lead times, but also about smaller quantities or no minimum order quantities. And our target, our aim is to take away a lot of headache from the industry in terms of lead times, but also in terms of minimum order quantities. Right. And this is our core message, that we are for the prototype industry tailor-made in terms of supply, package solutions, and also warehouse systems or consignment stocks.
Very, very significant. All right, so getting a little close, getting to the wind down, I do have a couple of questions that I want you to indulge me, because this is an area that I think, you know, you've got a very specific audience for this, but the ones that know what they need, their ears are up right now. But many of us who are just really interested in the business and motorsport in general, I can think of a couple of questions that I'm going to hit you with. But first, for people out there that are the target, that immediately are sparking on this and saying, wow, I want to connect with these guys, where and how should they connect with you to begin the conversation of evolving their product and using some of these new materials?
Yeah, so here in the US, clearly contact me either on my Powersports Consulting website. Powersports Consulting LLC is my business. I do run my communication for Smiths High Performance through a Smiths High Performance email, so don't get confused on that aspect. But I am dedicated for Smiths High Performance here in the US, and I correspond basically on a daily basis with the team in the UK and take care of any needs that come up from the US market.
Excellent. Excellent. Tom, got anything you want to add?
Yes, as Kai mentioned before, also reactivity is one of our biggest mission statements. We want to be back with our quotation within a couple of minutes or hours, and once the material is ready for shipment, it's done on the same day. And this is really a tailor-made solution. The entire sales and team is trained for that. And we do know and understand the racing industry and the quick demand.
Excellent. So from the layperson terms, you know, movies make new materials a sexy thing. I think about like the Iron Man suit, the Captain America shield. You guys are working with that kind of thing on a daily basis. You know, obviously the Hollywood version is what I'm talking about, but you guys deal with the real stuff. What impresses you, knowing that this is your daily business, the fact that human beings have been able to make what?
Tom, do you want to jump on it first?
Well, a crazy Austrian recently jumped from the stratosphere, right? So we're working with all kind of different markets. We're also working with satellite companies up in the space. but you also work with prosthetics. So predominantly, of course, racing, but basically we work with every engineering sector where we're able to put a smile on engineers' face.
Yeah, and for me, since I have been in the engine development myself, and I dealt with like titanium valves and things like that, when I hear, oh, they have a material in development that is even 15% lighter and 40% stiffer than a standard titanium valve, that makes my eyes pop out of my head, and I think, man, this is cool stuff, and this makes it sexy to be in this industry, you know.
Well, and as Tom said at the very beginning, and I see Franciski's on here, so I want to just thank you, gentlemen. But this interview started off talking about passion, and you clearly have it, and it's something that it is the root, it is the core. We can't do what we do with these amazing parts and machines without strong, solid core materials. So I appreciate you coming on here, you sharing your business, and most importantly, your passion for what you do. Thank you both.
Thank you so much for your time.
What a great webinars. It was very important for us to, show the world to advanced material is really advanced technology, and that's what's driving this industry. This is an industry about innovators, about entrepreneurs, and we basically, just coming up with new solutions, new ideas, new matter all the time, and that's fascinating. Kai has been very, very good at that, and is an engineer is passionate with all those, technology, has been bringing some really cool stuff to the market here. So I wish Kai the absolute best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I grew up watching Formula One, so I've always, love F1, and in terms of technology, yeah, they tend kind of lead the way. But here in America, you have also technology absolutely fascinating. That Joe is an expert of drag racing. It's not that same technology used but to get a car to go from 0 to 330 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds or whatever, that's a tremendous amount of technology, engineering, thinking, and new light materials, and people are just always looking for that. So thank you guys for being part of this. This is wonderful. Stay with us. We have a few minutes before our next session. So we're going to move you back as attendees. That way you can stay with us. Joe, stay with us 1 second while I do this and bring our next panelist. And any thoughts, since you've joined, you have run a few webinars since the beginning of the week, Joe. So I know you have a few more coming. Any thoughts on this week?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I've got people reaching out off the air about it, people that are signing on, people who are, my podcast listeners on my WFO radio podcast too, because I've been doing some shows in between and talking about who's going to be on. Obviously, the Nitro crew chiefs were incredible, and my drag racing friends, but to see Chip Ganassi, to see Roger Penske, to see how confident they are about the future, I think is very important for people right now going through what we've all just been through and are still going through, frankly, with our worldwide pandemic, to see people the stature of Chip and Roger, and even my Nitro crew chiefs, guys like Jim Oberhofer and others, business people who are entrepreneurs that we're speaking with, like our last two gentlemen, planning for the future, making bold steps, moving forward with their business. What does that do? It gives me confidence that not only are things going to be okay, but things are going to be good and maybe better than they've been as we continue to move forward. And this kind of energy only comes from these information exchanges that you've put together here at EPARTRADE, or if we were at a trade show, getting out of your own bubble, your own sphere of influence, hearing what other people have to say. And why on earth are they so energized about the future? Well, the answer is they're confident, and that makes me confident. And I think that's infectious and positive, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm happy to be able to get this and be a part of it. And I see folks like Jeff Hammond, who I am a fan. So it's good on all fronts.
Hey, Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Francis. And
Oh, it's
I
okay.
appreciate that, Joe, very much. You about got me flustered because of that right there. But I've enjoyed sitting here listening to you do your job the last little bit. And you did an excellent job right there getting that information and giving me a better insight about where the new technology is getting ready to lead us. Kind of like, space age stuff that's child's play. We're going Captain America now.
Well, exactly. And I'm sure that you went through that experience as a crew chief, like trying to find what was better without anyone knowing that you were doing it.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, you got to realize that in the very beginning for race cars and let's just go, chassis and stuff was whatever they came out of Detroit with. And then we turned right around. We started using basically black pipe, plumber pipe almost to build roll cages. And now, we're special moly, chrome moly tubing and everything like that has progressively got improved upon. And everything about it that you were touching on, the sophistication of making a product that's great, perfect. And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. Fill out your name, email, phone number, and create a secure password. Next, select your business type. Choose supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose racing business if you're looking to find new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose race team if you own or are a member of a professional racing team. Begin typing your company name. We most likely already have your company in our database, which you can select from the drop-down. Then, enter your job title. Choose Claim Company if you'll be editing your company profile. Other members of your company can choose Join Company if they'd like to use EPARTRADE as well. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Click Register Now, and your registration will be submitted for approval. You'll need to confirm your email once it goes through. To keep our platform industry only, you'll be approved shortly after. If we require additional proof of business, we'll reach out. Welcome to EPARTRADE.